Hi everyone, my name is Abhiraj Garikapati. Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Abhi. Do you know how much Sung Jinwoo respect his future wife Cha, or what about Sung Il-wen? How much respect does Jinwoo have for his father? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down in today's video. We'll give each character a percentage of how much Jinwoo respects them, starting with the ones who he respects the least, working our way up to the ones he respects the most. So, let's get right into it with the first character, the Frost Monarch, and Jinwoo's actually got negative respect for the monarch with minus 20%. Why? Because Silid killed someone very close to Jinwoo, but I won't tell you who it was as I don't want to spoil it for you guys. But that's not the only reason Jinwoo hates him. I mean, he's a monarch who's out to wipe out humanity, so yeah, Jinwoo truly hates him. Next up is Hwang Dong-soo, who Jinwoo has minus 10% respect for. After Jinwoo killed his brother Dong-soo went full on revenge mode and eventually kidnapped Jin-ho to get back at him. But Jinwoo quickly tracked Dong-soo down, and although Dong-soo thought he could take Jinwoo in a fight, he got absolutely wrecked. But before Jinwoo could finish him off, Thomas Andre stepped in and told him to spare his guildmate. But since Dong-soo had hurt Jin-ho, Jinwoo wasn't having it. He went right through Thomas and took Dong-soo down. He then even extracted his shadow and named him Greed. So if that doesn't show how little respect he had for this guy, I don't know what will. Talking about Dong-soo, we've got to talk about his brother Hwang Dong-soo, who Jinwoo's got 0% respect for. Jinwoo thought Dong-soo was a pathetic selfish scumbag, as Dong-soo tried to kill him and Jin-ho just to make some easy money from the raid. Once Jinwoo saw through all of Dong-soo's arrogance and figured out what was really going on, he had no respect for him at all. So when he came back, thinking Jinwoo and Jin-ho were dead, he started attacking them. But Jinwoo eventually completely overpowered him, and honestly he wasn't even satisfied. He just felt disgusted when he begged for his life. And then, when he had the nerve to threaten Jinwoo again, Jinwoo didn't hesitate for a second. He took him out on the spot. So to Jinwoo, Dong-soo was just a coward who got exactly what he deserved. Moving on, we've got Kang Tae-shik, and how much respect does Jinwoo have for this guy? Of course, 0%. Why? Because Jinwoo saw Tae-shik as a dangerous psychopathic hunter who didn't care about innocent lives. Although Jinwoo didn't care that Tae-shik killed the criminals during the raid, he couldn't forgive him for murdering people like Kim Song-shik and his teammate, people who didn't deserve to die. Then, after their intense fight, Tae-shik warned Jinwoo about the dark side of gaining power. And while Jinwoo agreed, feeling like he was losing pieces of himself as he grew stronger, it didn't change how he felt about Tae-shik. So even though Tae-shik's warning hit home, his actions were unforgivable in Jinwoo's eyes, making him someone who didn't deserve any redemption or respect. Now, let's talk about Antagonists, the monarch of destruction who Jinwoo's actually got 1% respect for. Because although Jinwoo knew Antagonists was his greatest and most dangerous enemy, he actually had just a tiny bit of respect for Antagonists' strength. But as Antagonists was the leader of the monarchs, he was a huge threat to humanity. And as I said before, anyone who threatens innocent lives doesn't get Jinwoo's respect. So yeah, he really didn't like Antagonists and knew he had to be stopped no matter the cost, even if it meant putting his own life on the line. Alright, now we've got Kim Song-shik, who Jinwoo's got 25% respect for. However, before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Abhi grow naturally. First, Jinwoo hated Kim for running away in the double dungeon, leaving him, Joo-hee, and Kai-yel behind. He blamed Kim at least partly for everything that went wrong. But when Kim was dying after being wounded by Tae-shik, Kim apologized, and that actually hit Jinwoo hard. So Jinwoo yelled at him to stay alive, just so he could keep blaming him for what happened. But when Kim said he wished he could have apologized properly, Jinwoo realized that Kim wasn't some bad guy, just an innocent person who made a huge mistake, trying to save his own life. So in the end, while he didn't respect Kim for abandoning them, he absolutely didn't hate him either. He saw him as just an innocent guy. Next up, Asiliradiru, who Jinwoo respected with as much as 55%. When Jinwoo first met Isela on the 80th floor of the demon castle, he took down her knights without breaking a sweat. But he hesitated to kill her because she looked human-like. So when she offered to help him navigate the castle, as she was scared he'd kill her, he agreed right away. He was also getting tired of wasting time trying to reach the 100th floor. So her offer was a no-brainer. Now, with Isela's help, Jinwoo sped through the floors, and he really appreciated her assistance along the way. Then when they finally made it to the 100th floor, he also appreciated her support during the battle. So Jinwoo did take a liking to her and was grateful for everything she did. But in the end, he mainly saw her as someone he used to achieve his goal. Now, the character that Jinwoo has 90% respect for, lead Juhee. Juhee and Jinwoo share a really close bond, and Jinwoo's always been thankful for her, especially since she always healed him during their raids and was nice to him, way different from the other hunters who used to call him weak. Then, after both the traumatic double dungeon and the dungeon in Prisoner's arc, Juhee told Jinwoo she was retiring and going back to her parents in Busan, so even though he did really like her, he didn't want to get too close, as he didn't want to be a constant reminder to her of all the trauma she'd been through, so he respected her decision to step away from being a hunter and move on with her life. Another character Jinwoo's got 90% respect for is Song Kil. Jinwoo has a lot of respect for Kil, especially for his bravery in the double dungeon. Even though Kil left him behind, he did it because Jinwoo wanted Juhee to survive, and Kil made sure she did by carrying her outside, following Jinwoo's orders. When they then met again during the dungeon and Prisoner's arc, Jinwoo respected Kil for standing up to Taeshik to keep him and Juhee safe, even though Jinwoo of course didn't need the protection. Then, when Jinchul came and asked what happened during the raid, Kil lied to protect Jinwoo's secret, and when Jinwoo quietly asked him why he lied for him, Kil simply said he had a feeling Jinwoo had his reasons for hiding his strength and didn't want to make things harder for him. So, long story short, Jinwoo just has nothing but respect for Kil. Moving on, we've got Hang Song-yi, who Jinwoo's also got 90% respect for. When Jinwoo first saw Song-yi at Jinho's raid party, he didn't recognize her as he didn't know his sister's classmates and friends. But later, when Jinwoo's high school principal asked him to help get Song-yi back to school, after she dropped out to become a hunter, Jinwoo decided to try and convince her to go back. So, he figured he'd show her how dangerous the job of a hunter could be, but he never imagined just how dangerous this raid would get. But after the Red Gate incident, Jinwoo saw Song-yi as a little sister he'd do anything to protect. He even asked her if she could sleep after the trauma she'd been through. Although Jinho took it the wrong way, Jinwoo also offered. Before we move ahead, please take a second to share on this video. Sharing helps this video reach friends who may also enjoy anime, gaming, travel, cricket, chess, career basics, or personal stories. Your support helps Amazing Abhai grow naturally. To train her if she still wanted to be a hunter, but she chose to go back and finish high school instead. Still, he's always there for her, ready to look out for her no matter what. Now, let's talk about the first character that Jinwoo's got 100% respect for. Jinho. At first, Jinwoo didn't think much of Jinho during their raid with Dong-suk, only that he was a rich guy with expensive armor. Then, after Jinwoo saved him, Jinho made a deal with him to become a guildmaster, which Jinwoo saw as just another way to grow stronger. However, as time went on and they went through raid after raid, they grew much closer, and one day, Jinho told Jinwoo that he actually saw him as his real older brother because of how Jinwoo always looks out for him. Jinwoo smiled and said he was happy to be his brother, which made Jinho incredibly happy. So, Jinwoo sees Jinho as his little brother, but also as his best friend. And we see how much Jinwoo cares about Jinho when he was kidnapped by Dong-soo. Jinwoo didn't hesitate for a second. He rushed to rescue him, and when he had to face off against national-ranked hunter Thomas Andre just to get to Dong-soo, he could have just left with Jinho. But he didn't want to let Dong-soo escape after hurting his friend, so yeah, that clearly shows how much he cared about Jinho. Next up, Jinwoo's future wife, Cha-hyun, who he of course has 100% respect for. At first, Jinwoo and Cha's relationship was pretty one-sided, as he didn't think much of her. But she was super interested in him, mainly because he was the only hunter she'd ever met who smelled nice to her. Over time, though, Jinwoo started warming up to her, especially after he saved her during the Jeju Island raid, and she ended up falling deeply in love with him. So their feelings eventually became mutual, and they went on their first date just before an S-ranked gate appeared in Seoul. As their bond grew stronger, They eventually got married, and now Jinwoo's got nothing but respect for his wife and would do anything to protect her. Continuing with characters, Jinwoo's got 100% respect for Go Gun-hee. When Jinwoo got re-evaluated as an S-rank hunter, Gun-hee really admired him and started making some exceptions for him, like letting him go on solo raids, which made Jinwoo's life easier and he really appreciated it. Over time, they became even closer, and Jinwoo had a lot of respect and admiration for Gun-hee. He saw him as someone who understood his abilities and recognized his potential, which made their bond stronger. Now, let's start talking about Jinwoo's family members, and let's start with his mother, Park Keon-hee, who he's got 100% respect for. Jinwoo loves his mom more than anything, and her illness was the whole reason he became a hunter. He just wanted to find a way to save her. For 4 years, he risked his life in dungeons to pay for her hospital bills and search for a cure. When he finally woke her up with the holy water of life, he couldn't stop himself from crying because he was so relieved. After she recovered, he tried to spend as much time with her as possible to make up for lost time. To Jinwoo, she's everything, and he'd do anything to keep her safe. Next up, we've got his sister, Jin-ae, who he respects with 100%. Jinwoo and Jin-ae have a classic sibling bond. They tease and bicker like all siblings do, but they also care about each other a lot. And Jinwoo, before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Appy grow naturally. Woo is super protective of her and doesn't hold back when it comes to keeping her safe. Like when orcs attacked her school, he didn't just save her. He brutally slaughtered them all as he went into rage mode that they tried to hurt his sister. So again, although they bicker like all siblings do, Jinwoo will do anything to keep her out of harm's way. Last but not least, in the Song family, we've got his father, Song Il-wan, who he has 100% respect for. Jinwoo deeply loved his dad, so when Il-wan got trapped inside a dungeon during a raid, Jinwoo was left devastated, and his absence left a huge void in their family. Years later, when he heard that his father was still alive, but that he also was the main suspect in the killing of a national-level hunter, Jinwoo stood up and told everyone during the International Guild Conference that if the suspect really was his father, he wouldn't hesitate to fight every hunter in the world to protect him. So that clearly shows how much he loved his dad. And then, when he finally met his dad again for the first time in years, Jinwoo finally learned the truth about his disappearance, and he had nothing but understanding for his father. Now, instead of going over all the shadows by themselves, we've got Jinwoo's top 3 shadows, and can you guess who they are? Well, it's gotta be Belian, Egris, and of course, Biru. And Jinwoo's got 100% respect for all of them. When Jinwoo's shadows were fighting over who would be Jinwoo's right-hand man, he flat out said that Belian would be on the right, Biru, and Egris would protect his back. That's a huge sign of respect because that means that these 3 are the ones he's closest to and trust the most. Belian's on his right as he's the strongest of them all, while Biru is on his left as Jinwoo's called Biru his most trusted shadow, probably since Biru is his #1 fan, and giving Egris the task of protecting his back. That's the ultimate show of trust for a knight. Now, if you ever thought that Jinwoo didn't care about his shadows, think again, because during his fight with Antagonists, Jinwoo was willing to tank a hit just to protect Egris, which left a permanent scar on his hand. So, while his shadows would sacrifice themselves to protect him, Jinwoo will always do everything in his power to keep the ones closest to him safe. So yeah, he's absolutely got 100% respect for these 3. Now we've actually got one character left who Jinwoo's got even more than 100% respect for. Again, can you guess who it is? Well, it's the former Shadow Monarch Ashbourne, who Jinwoo's got infinite respect for. So, you're telling me that Jinwoo had more respect for Ashbourne than even his own family? Well, yeah, because without Ashbourne, Jinwoo would have never become the Shadow Monarch, which means he would have stayed the weakest hunter of mankind, which he absolutely hated. And let's be real, he probably would have died way before the monarchs even showed up to wipe out humanity. So Ashbourne gave him the strength to protect the people he loves, and for that, Jinwoo will always be grateful. It's not that he cares more about Ashbourne, it's just that Ashbourne literally changed his entire life and made it possible for him to always keep his family and friends safe. Who do you think Jinwoo respects the most in solo leveling? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and watch this video next. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Amazing Appy. Subscribing makes sure you do not miss the next video, and it gives me motivation to keep improving the quality of every upload. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.